Alrighty. Happy Thursday, folks. I think a reboot took care of some of that network slowness. That's so weird. So we got a couple things today. We did all about relational databases last week and built out our basic stock trading database. So we can have users, we can have stocks, and we can actually buy and eventually sell them as far as we got. So today we're actually going to do the PHP side of things and how we can actually interact with that on a website. And we also are going to go over project 1. I'll do that first. We'll go over how I would solve project 1. Hopefully everyone got a chance to get that in. I know a couple people had some last minute issues, but I think everyone at least got something in for partial points. Right, just as many things as you can get off that rubric is great. And then at the end of the night, we'll talk about project 2. And we've got 2 weeks to do project 2. And we're just going to keep that flow. Every 2 weeks we'll do a project, and we'll just keep on going until we hit the midterm. Then we'll get our final project the last month of class. And that'll be our capstone's not the right word for it, but it'll tying everything together, sort of a larger project. And ideally, we're going to do this in pairs. I know, given everything, maybe you're not comfortable pairing with somebody. That's okay. So, like, if you really want to do it individually, go for it. But I think you'll have a better experience in pairs for that final project. But we'll see how it goes. That make sense? So let me fire up NetBeans here. Forgot that always takes a while. I'll just reboot it. Maybe it'll be faster. All right. So we grab the project 1 definition here, and we'll go through building that. Did that go all right for you folks? Yeah. Cool. It rate went down again. That is so weird. All right, looks like we're back. So for project 1, right, we're building out that little loan payment calculator, or saying, like, given a given loan amount and given a payment amount, how many months is it going to take us to pay this thing off? And totally flexible, right? We're not saying this is a payment if you want to do it in 36 months or if you want to do it in 12 months, whatever. We're just saying, what's the total, what's the interest, and how much you're paying every month. Right? So you can kind of use that in any way that you want here. So we're going to start with an index page with the form that takes their name, the loan amount, the yearly interest rate, and the monthly payment amount. And then we're going to send that over to the calculate page. It calculates it. So we'll show their name, we'll get their balance, that's the total, and then every month, right, in a loop here, we're going to figure out what the new balance is. We're going to increase it by the yearly interest rate divided by 12, right? So that's the month's worth of interest. Then we're going to subtract the monthly payment from that, and that's their new balance. And we'll display the balance every month. So, like, hey, 1 month, here's the start of it. After 1 month, this is your new balance. Month 2, new balance. Month 3, new balance. Month 4, new balance. On and on and on. And we also do want to check that if their payment amount was not larger than the monthly interest, this thing just isn't going to work. It's going to run forever. And we should just tell them, hey, you can't pay that little bit on that large of a loan. Give them some sort of message that's saying, hey, this is no good here. I had it. Means where to go. There it goes. So I'll start up a new project. Actually, let me close all my other ones here, and I'll start up a new one. Yeah, definitely the school computers aren't built for streaming. This is my personal laptop. It usually does pretty well, but it's getting on 2.5 years old now, so and sadly hardware just doesn't really last all that long. So maybe I'm due for a new one soon. But hopefully it works decently enough. Sort of the idea, and that's why this is sort of like an experiment this semester to see how well it works from the classroom. The school's actually in talks with one of our vendors to do some sort of actual setup in specific rooms on campus, so we can try out an official HyFlex format with, like, an actual camera mounted at the front and things, and you can see a whiteboard and all sorts of expensive things. That sounds neat. But they're only going to do, like, 1 per campus, and they're probably not going to put it in a computer lab because no one else uses computer labs except for CIS. English does occasionally for people who write papers, and I think accounting does every now and then, but we're basically the only folks who do it. So I don't have high hopes that we'll get on that list, but maybe. All right, so we're going to do our PHP application. I'm going to put it not in the htdocs folder, so that's kind of small here. I think there's a way to zoom. I keep forgetting to change that. There's a zoom setting I can fix. So I'm going to put it in my GitHub folder. So again, all the code is going to show up out here in the GitHub repository. And then we want to call this one, let's do project 1. Oh, that's right. I got to put it in a subfolder here. So I'll put it in a project 1 folder inside of that GitHub repository to keep things a little bit separate here. Then we want to, from there, copy the files over to htdocs. And we'll say, okay, we'll call this project 1 over in the htdocs folder. So it's going to go find it. Again, I had to change my port number. If you didn't have to, no big deal, but I know I'm on 5080 instead of port 80. So you got to add the port number. It's all fine. We don't need any frameworks. We don't need any of the composer stuff. We're good to go. We'll make our project. We should be good to at least start our index page, build out the form first, then we'll worry about the calculate page. And I'm going to check my GitHub repository and make sure if it sees new files, I know I got it in the right place. We'll take a look at that. Yeah, Professor Burr, I don't actually know if I can plug a laptop in hardwired, though, over like an Ethernet cable. That would be... Could try it. I'm not sure what the network would do. No. Oh my goodness, 2454. There we go. I'm glad the Flex system's working well. The Vanzo. All right, so again, I see my index page. I see a couple NB projects. Those are the NetBeans project files. Great, just leave them alone. They're all good to go. So I see new stuff. I feel like it's working. I got it in the right spot here. I can go back to actually writing code. So our page, you're going to need form. I'll grab that in a second here. Now, I'm not a big fan of typing things from scratch, so I'm going to go view the current repository out here that has another form, and I can copy paste it and then change a couple things. I'm a big fan of copy pasting. Let's give that a shot. We had a previous index page. Nope, that one wasn't it. Is it my first website? There we go. Their index page. And here's a little form. So I can copy in a form. Again, we'll change the things as we need to here. But I can grab my form and I can throw it in here. And the index page probably doesn't even need any PHP. We're not doing anything dynamic. Nothing's happening on the server side that needs to be processed from our users. It's just a static page, and that's fine. We're more than welcome to serve static pages. Later on we can get slightly more interesting, but we'll start with some basics now. Then we want to send this, we said, to a calculate page. So we'll send it to calculate.php. And Git should be fine. If you wanted to do post was cool too. But I think for this, it's a read-only, essentially. And we want to be able to use that URL, and I can like just hit refresh on it and won't warn me I'm not posting anything. Nothing's changing. We're not like submitting any changes. So I think Git's more appropriate here. But if you wanted to use post for fun, that's fine. So we needed name. We needed the total loan amount. Total loan amount. And you need to change these names of the inputs here, because the name of the input is what's going to show and what we can use then to get that data back out. So this one is, I don't know, total loan, or just total. I don't know, total loan amount. Why not? Doesn't hurt to be nice and long. And again, if you like the snake casing with underscores, go for it. If you like the camel casing, go for it. Just pick one and stick with it. It really, we don't care, as long as you're consistent. Otherwise, you're going to drive people crazy. Okay, and then we'll say, what is the yearly interest? And just to help tell them what we're expecting, I want to say, like, as not a decimal. So, like, we'll say, I don't know. I don't even know what you'd call that. It's not even a whole number, because you can have like 3.5, but like 3.5. Something like that. I don't know. Just something to help, because if they put in 0.035, which is the correct, this is 3.5%, it's probably going to screw up our calculations. And again, we could check for that later, but the more you help your users give you good data, the more likely you are to get good data. It's not 100%. Users will give us crazy things all the time. And like, if someone wants to be silly, they'll put in a negative percentage, and then they're like, hey, look, the loan just it's paying itself off. I guess. Anyway, okay, so you can get all sorts of crazy stuff from users. This will be the yearly interest rate. And then we want what is the monthly payment? And that'll be monthly payment. Oh, F-Paint, okay. I've never tried to plug in. I'll have to give that a look. I don't actually know if there's even a port I can use. I'll have to look and see. Oh, is that one still hanging out of the wall? Oh, I did fix it. Good. On Wednesday or Tuesday, that power outlet over on the wall was hanging out really scarily. It's like, someone should come fix this, but I don't know who to ask about that. So it's fun being new. All right, so we've got all of our values that we need. And then, I don't know, it's instead of click me, what do we like, calculate? I don't know, or I mean, how long it takes to pay this off. It doesn't really matter, right? We can make it say anything we want. It's our code. Sure, so I'll give that a save. Now I'm going to see if this just loads, right, before we go to the calculate page. So again, I'm going to change my browser. I hate the default one. Let's go to Firefox, and let's see if it runs. Yeah, I think just borrow one from the desktop for the Ethernet cord. Yes, I could. Oh, 6080, so I mistypoed the port number, and then I totally forgot to start Apache. I didn't even open up the XAMPP control panel first. This is totally on purpose, because you guys won't run into these sorts of things, right? This is just illustrating what could happen. All right, so we'll go back. So if I have the port number wrong, that's the project properties. I'm going to go to, and that's in the run configuration. You just have to change that port number. See, it's so small I can't even read it either. We'll try that again. There we go, and it looks like I get a nice little page. Cool. So name, loan amount, yearly interest, monthly payment. You know, obviously the URL is not bound. We don't have a calculate page, but we're making progress. Okay, let's check. Is that matching what we need here in the spec? And again, we can go off the rubric here. So index page has the form with the inputs. Calculate page filters all the inputs. All right, so calculate page, calculate page, calculate page. Cool. So we're good with the index page. It meets the spec. Right? Doesn't need to have anything pretty. Again, if you like pretty things, go for it. The goal of this class, again, is not pretty, but server-side web development functional. Right? You can do all the CSS and web design stuff, make it pretty later. Or maybe even depending on your organization, maybe you have someone who's good at that sort of thing, but they're not a developer. They're not going to do the back-end web stuff. Just depends on your organizations. It's good to be good at everything, but that's hard for people to be good at actually everything. So, all right, so we'll make our calculate page. Open up our project, open up our source files. We'll add a new PHP page. So we'll call this calculate. And again, this one just starts off with empty PHP tags. So we need to go filter all that input first. So we want the values that should be numeric. We need to make sure we're getting numeric values. Otherwise, bad stuff is going to happen. The name, sure, that one's pretty easy. And again, I just want to copy paste some things. So we'll go take a look at the other. We have like our display page. Did a bunch of these filters already. Look at that. We'll go grab it first. And again, I'm fond of this format. The book is really good at showing us this example. We do all of the PHP stuff first. Any of the values we need to get calculated and set, we're going to do all of our code first. And then we'll have, okay, this was what we spit back out after that fact. Just kind of, it's a better way to organize and make our code a little cleaner here. All right, so name, sure, off the input get is name. That one's easy. And again, filtering for special characters, because who knows what they're going to give us. Right? This is just a good habit to be in anytime we're doing anything with text. Right? If we're doing it as a numeric value, we know it can't be text anyway, because it just won't convert to a numeric value. So we're only going to filter the ones that are text values, not the ones that are numeric values. We'll get rid of that one. And then we had a couple other values. So we had total loan amount should be, the name of that was total loan amount, if we did it right. And I could even copy paste it from the other page if we wanted, right? To make sure. It's really easy to typo things because they're not like connected as easily. And that can be a floating point value. It doesn't have to be an integer, right? You could borrow $100.50. Go for it, right? Why not? And then we were going to have our yearly interest rate. There's an input of the yearly interest rate. with our $sign here. Right, and again, that's a floating point value. And we'll do one more here for the monthly payment. Let me grab the right monthly payment here. Monthly payment and dollar month. Oops, other side dollar monthly payment. Cool. So we got all those. Then we wanted to check, right, a couple things. Again, if we can, I didn't ask you to, but you could assume they gave you the right yearly interest rate, but we could check real quick, right? We could say, hey, if the yearly interest rate is less than 1, they probably gave us a percentage. Maybe not. Maybe it is like 0.5% yearly. So this one is a little bit harder for us to check. So maybe it's not worth checking this sort of way. Because I guess you could have specials, right? I guess some car loans, you can get like 0.5% or 0.99% or whatever they offer. I don't know. So maybe we'll leave that alone. We'll just assume they gave it to us the right thing. We should check to make sure the monthly payment is large enough first. Right? So what is the monthly interest? We can calculate the monthly interest is going to be the total loan amount times, now if this yearly interest rate is a whole number, like 3.5, we actually need to go divide it by 100. Right, to make it be 0.035, right? So it's not 350%, but 0.35 or 3.5%. So we'll take the yearly interest rate, and divide that by 100, then we divide it by 12 again. So if you just want to divide by 1200, go for it. If you want to divide by 100 and then divide by 12 again, great. Right? And if you didn't do this and you probably saw some really funky numbers, right? Like why are you charging me $500 interest instead of $5 or whatever? Sure. So we know what the first month's interest is going to be. This is just for our sanity check to make sure, hey, is this monthly payment large enough? So we can check, hey, if the monthly interest is greater than or equal to, I guess if you're only paying the interest, you'll never pay it off either. So greater than or equal to is probably more appropriate. If that's greater than or equal to the monthly payment, we've got some bad stuff happening, right? And probably we just error here, right? We can just echo, that's not a large enough monthly payment. Have to pay at least, I don't know, we could add in some more values if we wanted. Should we tell them what the monthly payment is? Monthly payment, probably like plus $1 to that, I don't know, or at least an extra penny. We'll just do +1. Right? We'll just, whatever that is. Again, this is just a more helpful error message. I don't think I asked for anything this specific in the rubric. Just give them an error. But we want to be helpful for our users. Right? You have to pay at least, and again, this is just so I don't have to concatenate stuff. It's getting long already. I guess we could bump it down a line. Or why not? Okay, fine. We can concatenate that in. Should work for us. All in one echo. Right? And if not, then else we can actually do the rest of this stuff. Right? So we're checking to make sure we're not going to be in an infinite loop, and then we can keep on going. Yeah. So comments, it should be the //. Yep, looks just like Java.
You also have the same kind of block comments too.
Yeah, I think you can do the blocks. Yep, star block comments. Yep. So that tells you how often I actually use comments. Sorry. I'm happy to throw comments in. F. Haney asked if there's bonus points for pretty. Unfortunately not. No. And just I have some weird biases against bonus points in college. I just feel like that's really weird to give extra credit in college, like at college level classes. So I don't ever. But maybe I'm just weird. I don't know why that just seems funny. But yeah, I mean, you're welcome to make it pretty if you want to, but I won't ask for it or give you points for pretty or like have points on the rubric to say this is pretty. Just generally, I mean, I'm not good at it, so I don't, and that's not the goal. It's not what I'm teaching you to do, so it shouldn't matter. All right, cool. So that was our quick little sanity check. And then else, and again, we're not even like, this isn't even pretty HTML output. We haven't done, there's no header, there's no body. We're just, here's some ugly text. Probably not great, and maybe we could do a little bit better. Instead of like echoing this, we could have that be a message, and later on we could check for an error message or something. But again, this is only like 2 weeks into PHP, right? So again, if it is a little bit ugly, and that's okay. Don't judge me. All right. All right. So if the monthly payment is not less than or equal to the interest, right? We're actually gonna make a dent in this loan and eventually pay it off. We don't know when, but that's what we're gonna figure out next. We need a loop. So we need to have the total loan amount. So we could go change the total loan amount if we want. We could make this value and just subtract from it as we go. We don't need to make a new variable if we don't want, but we could, right? So we could have a current balance. Like, nothing wrong with adding more variables, right? If it is going to make it more clear of what this value actually represents, great. So the current balance will start as the total loan amount. Okay, and then we can take the current balance and we can add the interest. We're going to add, again, this same arithmetic here, but I'm going to use current balance. Again, current balance times the yearly interest rate divided by 100 divided by 12. Now, we can't actually keep or use this monthly interest because every month the interest is going to change, right? As the balance goes down, you're not paying that same amount of interest. You're paying the interest on the current balance. Right? So as the balance goes down, you pay less and less and less interest and more and more and more towards the principal or towards the balance here, and that should get lower and lower and lower. We do that step, and then our current balance is going to subtract, right? We'll take away our monthly payment. Now again, you could do this all on one line. Sure, you can do it on multiple lines. It doesn't matter, just a preference. Whatever you want to do, whatever is going to make it clear. And all of this we want to keep happening, right? While the current balance is greater than or equal to 0. Actually, greater than 0, right? If it hits 0 exactly, we do want to stop. So we'll keep calculating the current balance. So starting with the total, we'll add the monthly interest, we'll subtract the payment, and then we're just going to spit out that new balance. And maybe we want to count the number of months too, right? So maybe we have a month count. Right, so we can echo for, I don't know, current new balance in month 1 or month count, can't spell, month count, or new balance, I don't know, colon, new balance, current balance. Cool. I think that covers all the things. Let's take a look. Let's make sure we're following the rubric here. So calculate filters all the inputs. Great, we did that. Calculate will display an error if the monthly payment is less than the monthly interest. Yep, we did that. Formats the user's name using HTML special characters. We did that. We didn't actually spit out their username yet, but we did the formatting piece when we filtered. Great, so we should probably tell them, hey, so-and-so. Maybe we include name here. Right, how about name? And tell them here. Echo name. Here's your payment breakdown by month or something like that. Sure. And again, probably add those new lines here, because otherwise it's going to all run together. Terrible looking HTML. I apologize. Again, feeling a little bit bad about it, but that's not important. Not important for our purposes. I should be very specific here. All right, so month, new balance, great. And then we should probably add in another one of those new line breaks. Great. And tell them each one, right, what the new balance is, what the new balance is, what the new balance is. We just keep on going forever until this while loop stops. Right? Once the new current balance gets below or equal to 0, we'll stop. Yeah.
It might not hit the band or equal to 0. Is that a big deal?
I'm not going to take any points off for it, but like if the balance hits 0, you probably don't owe another payment. That's all. And actually, depends on the way your bank does things too. Some banks assess interest at different periods of time, or they charge you the interest at the beginning of the period versus the end of the period, and it's all sorts of nonsense. Thankfully, you have the Truth in Lending Act. So they have to give you a nice little form that shows you a lot of these details that no one reads anyway. But it's got like a nice big box on it that says total payments and whatnot. So, and they should actually give you one of these. This is called an amortization schedule. Any place you're ever getting a loan from should give you one of these if you ask for it. And you can actually see like month by month by month all the payments. And if they don't, you probably don't want to do business with them. Just as that's a pro tip. All right, so let's give it a try. So let's save that. Let's give it a run again. So let's start with something easy. So name is Eric. We'll do, say, $100, right, just to make this easy. And we'll say it's 12% interest, which is crazy. But this way, each month will be 1%. So I know the first month interest should be $1, right? 1% of 100, just so to make my math easy here. Right, and let's say, let's pay, so if we get $1 of interest a month, we need to pay more than $1. So let's just do $2, and we'll see what we get, right? Okay, so after the first month, right, we added the dollar for interest, and then we paid $2. So we went up to 101, down to 99. Next month, slightly less than $1 added, right, because it's 1% of this, right, and then we paid $2. 1% of that, we paid $2, on and on and on and on. Uh-oh. We never changed month count, right? It's always month 1. Well, let's go fix that. Right? Inside the loop then, right? Take month count. Sorry, plus equals 1. Is it not month count? Dollar month count. There we go. Dollar month count. There we go. Plus equals 1. I didn't have the dollar sign. That should do plus plus. Yeah, the red was because I didn't have the dollar sign, not because. All right, cool. Let's give that a try. And then because it's a get page, I can just hit refresh on this one. Right, I already have all those values in the URL here. We should be good to go. So we see, right? It takes 70 months to pay off a $100 loan. Right, and just for fun, if you wanted to do that yourself, like this isn't anything we needed to add in here, but if it takes 70 months. Come on, calculator. You're not that big of an app. Should load a little faster. Right, 70 months times 2. It's $140 that we paid to borrow 100. That's usually another thing that they would show in those truth in lending documents. Like this is the total cost or total amount of your payments versus the amount you borrowed. So this is what it costs you to borrow the money for 70 months. Sure, right, at your payment amount. Okay, let's see. Does that hit all the? We format the username. Did I spit out their username? I think we did. Yeah, Eric, here's your monthly payment breakdown. Okay, so we got their username. We correctly calculate the monthly interest to be added to the current balance, right? That's the interest rate divided by 12. Probably interest rate divided by 100 if you're asking for whole numbers, right? Because otherwise 3.5 would be 350% interest, which would be crazy. And then new balance is displayed each month. Okay, so if I'm like looking through and thinking what I need in terms of a self-assessment, I'm going to look through my rubric and say, okay, yeah, I did that one, check. Did this one, check. Did this one, check. That's the habit I'd like you to get into. Like, make sure you're checking all the things off the list on the rubric when you turn in assignments. Okay, essentially you're scoring yourself, right? And you're saying, yes, I did this, yes, I didn't. So just some silly stuff that happens behind the scenes. This course has this whole list of objectives that you have to do, and throughout the semester, I didn't make any changes, so no, I don't want to save them. I can discard them. The different assignments and quizzes and things will map to those different objectives, and I can say, okay, yes, if 80% of you don't pass it, the class gets flagged for review, and this sort of whole thing with our accreditation. It's this whole fun process that I'm trying to figure out. But it all maps back to these assessments or these outcomes that say, hey, if you take the class, you should be able to do this thing. Right? There's that big list of outcomes we read through. Not a lot of the words made sense. We haven't learned them all yet, but we'll get to them. Was that like page 2, right? Where'd it go? Yeah, these common course outcomes, right? So each one of these is going to map somewhere to one of our assignments here, and that sort of thing. So if I have a rubric item, it's really easy to say, okay, how did everyone score on this little rubric here? Makes my life a lot easier. So that's another reason I like to use the rubrics too. And most of you like seeing them, how you get the points. It's not just a crapshoot. Yeah.
For your you use filter validate loads.
Yep.
I use sanitize instead of validate. Is that still okay?
So in a different function, you mean? Or instead of this filter input?
Like the parameters filter sanitize.
Oh. Sure. Honestly, I'd have to Google what the difference is. Yeah, as long as it's doing something, it should be fine. Oh, we can Google that real quick. Maybe. filter validate, filter sanitize. See what it says. That doesn't make any sense. Let's consult Stack Overflow. Yes, this is valid. Return that. So sanitize gives you a string of the value. So I think the validate's probably easier for us. I don't know, as long as it works. Sure, there's some fine detail there, but not all that important to us. All right, and then when we're done, right, make sure I've got my index page, my calculate page. Things look good, ready for me to commit. All right, do I have everything in here? Yep, got my if, my else. Oh, we didn't try an else yet. We didn't try and make sure we actually got the error. Right, it'd be good to check that out. So let's say if we're only paying $1, it's not large enough. You have to pay at least 2. Oh, sure, our formatting's ugly. Sure, we could add some more spaces. All right, I'm feeling bad. I'm going to go add some spaces. At least space, space. Okay, add some spaces in here. I feel pretty good. That'll work. So here's project 1 done. Commit. And push. All right, so that'll be out there in the course GitHub repository for you if you want to reference that. Beyond just sitting here watching it, it's always out there. All right, now totally up to you folks. Do you want to start the new stuff for the next like 20, 25 minutes and then take a break at like 7? Or take the break now and then we can sit and focus on some of the new stuff for a little while instead of breaking in the middle of it? What works out better? All right, I got 1 vote for now. Usually the first person who talks wins, unless a bunch of people object. All right, we'll take a break now. I've got a couple Cokes if anyone wants one. I've been getting them at Kroger because they're cheaper than the vending machine here. And I got this really cool cooler to put in my office. I'm super excited to try this. It may or may not work. It was sat in a lab for years and years and years, but they were cleaning out the lab over at Dearborn. And they didn't want anything moved into the new, really expensive building that might not look really pretty. So they're like, you can't take anything from the old rooms. We're only going to put new equipment in here because it looks better. I guess if you're building a $90 million building, you have standards. So anyway, all right, why don't we take a break? We'll come back in a little bit. I'll start up some music for you folks online. Oh, Professor Perp voted now. All right, we got 2 votes for now. Awesome. And we'll go from there. All right, folks, take 10. Alrighty.
I have multiple phone tabs open.
Oh yeah,
Wouldn't
Chrome is a hog.
I know.
All right. So we're going to start some new stuff here now in PHP. I'll close this one down and start up a new project. So let's call this one our stock program, for lack of a better word. Let me try that zoom thing real quick while I'm thinking of it here. See if I can set the right zoom mode so we can actually see some of those menus. Give it a shot. So I think all that's in OpenDev. Let's find out. I think I installed it there. Yeah, there we go. All right, so NetBeans. It's in bin, right? NetBeans. Let's try it. So in compatibility mode, change our high def. All right, we want to scale by system, I think. That might do it for us. Let's try it. Someone else was having the issue, and that was what I found on Google. Or Bing, actually. But yeah, episode 4 of class. Yeah, we call it that. That doesn't look much zoomed. Let's see what the menus look like here in a second. And I'm back in XAMPP. I'm going to start up MySQL again. I want to have that one up and running. It'll ask the computer to do a lot of things. Let's slow down a second. My encoding is overloaded. Turning down video settings using a faster encoding preset. Huh. I know what encoding is set on this for. Oh, that's ugly. There's my settings. It usually works. I think it's just saying it's really slow. Yeah. Output? No. Oh, it's using the software encoder. Why am I not using my video card? That might be the problem. Yeah, Professor, we'll chat later, okay? And let's see. I thought it was using my video card. That's super weird that it's not. Maybe that's part of the problem. That would definitely tax the system a little bit more. All right, we'll play with that after. Appreciate it. Come on, NetBeans. I'll turn off the music too. Hey, does that look a little better, or am I making it up? I don't know if that's actually zoomed. No difference. Sorry. Maybe I picked the wrong one. I'll play with that again later. All right, so let's do our stock program. I'm going to put it in my repository in a folder called stock program to keep it all separate. Then the port number, localhost 5080 for me, and I'm going to copy into the htdocs folder stock project. So whatever the folder name that you put stuff in here, that's going to be our path, right, in the URL. So it's localhost / whatever the name of that folder is. So we actually have a folder out in htdocs named project1, and that's where it puts all this stuff. That's how all the magic happens. Next, and finish, and we're off to the races. All right, and let me go grab this here, because way easier to copy paste things. All right. Excuse me. All right, here we go. This is what we need. All right, so the first example is going to be ugly and we're going to change it after, but we just want to see if we can actually get some sort of connection happening here. So PHP has some built-in objects we're going to use called a PDO object for our data access. And that'll make life easy for us here. So at the beginning of our page, we'll do our little PHP tag. Nope, not a paragraph. Okay. And we'll create that connection. So what you use is you have a three different pieces here. You have the connection string that we're going to create, and the connection string has a particular format. So what we say is what type of database, in our case here, so it's MySQL colon, and we have to tell it where are we connecting. So in the real world, when you have a web server, it's almost 100% not running the database as well. In our development mode, when we're just doing things locally on our laptop, we're not connecting out to another database server. We're just doing everything local. So we'll say, hey, the host is localhost. In the real world, you can change that host to be something else. Right? Wherever your database server happens to be out on the internet or on your local network, wherever you're pointing to. So we'll say, okay, it's in localhost. And we say, hey, the database DB name is, and I don't actually remember what we called ours. So I'm going to go back to the PHP MyAdmin page. Oops, 5080, not 5080. Thought I changed that. I think we just called it stock, or stocks. The plural is going to matter here in a second. I think it was it stock program? It might even been stock program. Come on, MyAdmin. Come on. Maybe. It's all up and running. Thinking hard about it.
I'm going to use the MySQL page again.
So from the XAMPP control panel, you can just click on admin. Yep, and that should launch it out for you. Yeah, there we go. Oh, yeah, stock program is what we called our database. Now, actually, I'm going to open this up because connecting to databases is very particular. So we need to know all the names exactly as they are. As you can imagine, just like any variable name, it needs to match. So all of our database attributes need to match as well. So it's stock program for the database name. Okay. Then, and this is terrible, and I apologize, there are better ways to do this. We just don't have time to get into it. Right? We'll have a username. So the user that we created, right, in PHP MyAdmin, oh, where'd it go? Right, remember we created some user accounts with limited permissions. We don't want to use the root account. That's a bad idea, because then they have access to everything. So that limited account, we call that one stock program too. I just cannot remember last week already. Oh, I'm already at the home page, sitting here waiting. User accounts. Ours was called stock program. So that's the username. So whatever you called yours, we'll put in that for the username. Ours was stock program. And then the really bad thing, you put in the password here. And ours, I think, was test. Sorry, there are better ways. We don't care at this point, right? We're focused on the development side of things. And different organizations may or may not have different tools or processes for doing this sort of thing. So just feel bad about it and don't use this in production. Especially don't commit passwords to GitHub, right? Passwords should never go in github.com, right? Just as a fun aside, if you ever use things like AWS or Azure or other web services, there's actually bots that go out and look for public GitHub repositories with credentials. We'll go and find them and spin up virtual machines to mine Bitcoin. So that happened to somebody overnight. They had like a $40,000 bill overnight because they committed their credentials by mistake. I think they actually got refunded because Amazon felt bad about it. But and now they actually prevent people from doing stuff like that. Like, hey, this seems weird that you're spinning up this many resources. Did you mean to do this? We'll stop your account. But just don't put. Okay, feel bad. Feel bad about this, but that's okay. Right? Then we actually create the connection to the database using this information. So again, DB is common enough for database. I don't feel bad that I don't actually spell out database. Almost everyone uses DB. We'll make a new PDO. So PDO is that built-in class here in PHP for connecting to databases here. We give it our connection string, which is telling it where to go find the database and what database it is. Right? So it's saying, hey, it's a MySQL connection. Find it on the localhost's connection. Look for this database name. We give it the username, and we give it the password. It goes and makes it for us. Okay. Now, bad things could happen here, right? We might give it a bad password. We might give it an invalid username. We might give it a bad connection string, right? Things can happen here that could crash our program, and we're going to not be super happy about that. So what we want to do then is we want to try and catch to handle those exceptions. Right? I think you got through try and catch. If you took 2151, if you took 1500, it might be brand new. It just means, hey, I'm going to try something that might crash. If it does, please don't crash. Do this instead. That's the quick gist of it. So we put this in called a try block. So try and a set of parentheses, or curly braces. We're going to try to create that connection. And if an exception happens, do something else instead of crashing. Okay, so what we want to catch here, you could be specific about these, you could be generic, thanks to inheritance, like everything is an exception, but we only really care about these specific PDO exceptions. So if there's an error, we'll echo connection error. And then you can take the ex get message ought to do it for us. Get, right? Get the message. Again, we haven't, it's funny looking syntax. We'll get to more of this later. We want to be able to catch exceptions and see what the problem is here. Otherwise, we can echo connected to DB and then probably add in like our little break. So if it connects successfully, we'll get this line. That's the other thing with the exception. If an exception happens, the code stops at that point. Nothing underneath it runs until you get to the try block. And then the try block runs. Okay? So we can get whatever that error message is and handle it here. Thank you. PDO. Look at that. Okay, now it knows what a PDO exception is. All right. Cool. So we'll just see if it connects here on our page. That's all we're trying right now, just seeing if we can launch that initial connection. Didn't find it in index PHP. Stock program, index. All right, I must have named something wrong here. Let me try this again. So we're copying to htdocs. Oh, stock project, stock program is where we're going to copy this to. So I had the folder name didn't match the URL. Right? Stock program versus stock project. Try that again. There we go. All right, so it's successfully connected to the database. Right? If you want to see one of those errors, just go stop MySQL and refresh your page. Now, it's going to take a second. It's waiting for it to fail. It's like sending out a connection and it has to time out. And now we get, okay, no connection made. Actively refused it means like, hey, I called, I knocked, no one answered. Right? So the catch seems to be working. So the try catch seems good. We got our connection. Feeling pretty good about it here. All right, and last time we looked at a little bit of this. If I check out the person table here, it's going to tell me the SQL that it's running, and then it's going to give me the result. So this is the SQL it's running. Select star from person. Star means every attribute or every column in the database. From, and then this is the name of the table, from the person table. I'll see, hey, There's an ID for 1. There's a first name Eric, last name Chernesky, balance 0. There's only one user right now. So let's go add another user. So we'll go to insert. So the value, right, for IDs, if they're auto-generating, we leave them blank. Remember, if we did the auto increment, which is fantastic, makes life easy for us, we don't add it. We just ignore it. It'll get generated by the database itself. Right, let's add my wife here. And she's actually hyphenated. And let's give her a big balance here. She can go buy some stocks. Cool, so it inserted into person, added some values. I'm just going to go back to browse, and now I should see more than one row, right? Every row in the table is like an instance of that attribute, or of that entity, that table, that noun. So ID 1 Eric Chernesky, ID 2 Jasmine Sobel Chernesky. She's got a balance. I have no balance. I'm going to edit mine. I'm going to add myself a little bit of balance too for fun. So let's change that to like 200. Why not? All right. So if we want to go access that information here, I'm going to do all of that inside of the try block here, because if it didn't successfully connect, then I can't actually go and use it. So it's all going to happen inside of try. I'm going to set up some values that I can then go use later on in a loop down below. Okay? So the format for this is you create a query. So we'll say, hey, what's my query? And it's the exact same thing we just saw. So we want select star from person. Was it person? Forgetting that already. From person. Right? Select star from person. That's what we want to do. Back to browse here. That's the query. Okay, that's what we want to run against the database. Excuse me. And then we want to get a database statement here. So we'll say a statement is our DB, right? That's the PDO object, arrow, so it's dash, that a greater than sign. This is that arrow notation. This is how you run functions on objects, or methods on objects. It's the funky notation. It's not dot notation, it's arrow notation. If you like C++, this will be familiar to you. Then we're going to prepare. And what do we prepare? We're going to prepare the query. So it says, hey, database, go get ready to run this thing. This essentially goes out and stages it here. Gets it ready to go. Then we want to execute. Statement, execute. So we're defining the query as a string here. We're asking the database to get ready to run it. And then we're saying, okay, run that thing. That's kind of fun to do extra steps. Then what we do is we need to get our results back out. So once we've run it, right? Once we've run execute, then we can go and get our results. So we're going to have our, we'll say people. I guess that's the plural version, right, of person. Again, it's a variable name. Call it anything you want. Will be our statement fetch. And now there's two. There's fetch and there's fetch all. Fetch will go and get the first row that was returned. Fetch all will get all the rows that are returned. Depends on what we want to do, right? So if our database is huge and it has millions and millions and millions of transactions in it, or rows in it, we might not want to fetch all, right? Because we can't process all that much data. But for all of our examples, we're pretty much always going to fetch all, as we're dealing with a small amount of data in our database, right? Just give me a couple things. I just want to grab them all. So we fetch them all. Once we've gotten the data out, then we need to go close this. Remember, when you work with files, you have to open the file, you have to read and write the file, you have to close the file. Same with the database. We create the connection, we use the connection, and we close that connection down. There's actually sorts of complex things behind the scenes that happen if you leave connections open. For our purposes, we could care less. And we're not going to get to anything at that scale where if we leave a bunch of connections open, we're going to block other people, because we're just not that large of an application. So thankfully, it's just not a problem for us. We don't need to do any like connection pools. So then I'll go to my statement again, and I'm going to close it now. It's called close cursor. So the cursor is actually a database level object that like is keeping track of where we are. So if you're fetching, it's going to keep a cursor in the database to say, okay, the next thing you're going to fetch is this. The next thing you're going to fetch is this. The next thing you're going to fetch is this. When you fetch all, it goes down to the bottom and says, okay, the next thing you're going to fetch is, there's nothing left. But we still have to close it to tell the database, please, I'm done. Right? You don't need to be remembering this anymore. That frees that up for the database. Okay, then to get at individual values, now, that is from our people. This is an object here, and we have multiple values inside of it, right? So the fetch all essentially gave me an array back. It's an array of objects inside of here. So each object, right, is one item in that array. So usually we're going to loop through, and what's really cool is PHP has some really handy loops. So I can say for each. I'm going to say, now the for each notation is backwards of the way you might have done it in Java. So we say for each person as, for each people, right? So people is our object, that's the array object. So for each, give it the array object as singular object. So we're going to say, okay, here's the array. I want each one, I'm going to call it person inside of my for each loop. And what we can do is we can echo out. Now, person then is going to have an array of values itself. So the people array is an array of arrays. It's like a two-dimensional array. So we get a bunch of people, and each entry in there is another array that has all of the attributes. So what we can do is by name of column. So I can say, hey, this is ID person, and then I say index of, go look up, find the ID column. What's the value of that piece of data inside the ID column? And then we're just going to append all this stuff together. So we have ID, we have name, person, index of name. What else do we have in here? Name. Oh, we had first name and last name. I'm sorry, and then balance. So ID, let's do first name. We'll do, so first name. We'll do last name. Last name. Just give you the last name value out of this array. Formatting here is terrible, I'm sorry. And then the balance. Balance. And I'll put in the $sign here for fun. That's our person. Find me the balance field. Okay, so we're just going to echo them all out, and then I probably actually want to add in another new line here at the end. Right, so we can add in another new line to break. So our for each loop will go over this array. Each item in it we're going to call individually a person. Right? And each person then will have all the attributes listed here. It'll have an ID, a first name, a last name, and a balance. Technically, you can get at stuff positionally. You can say like index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. That's always a bad idea when you're dealing with databases because we don't want to assume a particular database format. So if the database moves the columns around, because that could actually happen, or like they add a new column in between instead of at the end, and we're doing stuff positionally, saying index 0, 1, 2, and 3, it's going to screw us up. So going by name is always better. Right? This will say, hey, here's the name of that column. And then if your database administrator renames a column, that's on them. Right? That's just really bad to do. They should not rename columns because it screws everything up. Right? Okay, so let's see if it works. Give it a run. I get some information out. So it connected. It did the query, right? Select star from person. It gave me an array back. That was my people object. And again, call it anything you want. That's our variable name for it. Anything you want to call it. That's your variable for it. And then we looped. We said, okay, for every item in that array, I'm going to call the individual item person. And then the person was another array, but I can get out all these columns, all the attributes. Cool. So that's a quick list of people. We all right so far? So this is just a quick little look into what are we finding. But we need to be able to do all of our CRUD operations. How do we create or insert new data? Read, okay, we just did a generic read, but maybe we want to get specific. We can do some of that later. How do we update values? Right? If I want to give you more money or take money out, right? You should probably be able to add more money to buy stocks or take money out after hopefully you've made money. And then delete. Again, deletes are generally frowned upon. We're gonna work with them just so that you've seen them before, but just in general, it can be ugly. We won't worry too much about it aside from that little warning there. All right, so that's a quick little display. Now, I might not want to do this right on the index page, right? Maybe I want to have a separate page for some of these things. Or maybe I do want this on the index page, just depends. So why don't I add a new PHP file? We'll call this the, I don't know, list person. And I'll grab all this stuff that we're doing here, and I'll put that in list person. Cut it out of here, throw it in here. Oh, we don't need a PHP tag here. So then our index page, sure, let's just give a couple different menus maybe, or probably should build a navigation page that we can then include in all of these, right? We did that 2 weeks ago. We did a little navigation and we included it. That ring bells? Right, our little top navigation. That all this was some links for us. And then we included this in our other pages. Why is that highlighted? I don't know why that's highlighted. Let's do that. So I'll go and make a new PHP file. We'll call this top navigation. And so we have index.php. That's our index. That one's really boring. We'll list people. And we'll send you to the list person. All right, okay, that should probably be list people. Sure. If we're going to call it people, we'll say list people. And then maybe we'll add another page here for like add person. Right, I can add a person. How about another page for update person and another page for delete person? No, not as a comment, please. Not as a comment. We'll have update person, and then delete person. We can delete person. All right, cool. So we have a little navigation now. So in our index page, and instead of having to have all this head and body stuff, we can just include our, I think we do it as a string, right? This is why I can never remember things. Index page. Yeah, include it as a string. Cool. Oh, we already have a PHP block. Look at that. We just do include top nav, echo. There's our PHP block. Cool. I don't know. And what else do we want to put in here? Like, I'm an index page. Okay. So we should get a little top nav now when we run that we can include in all of our other pages. Right? That way I don't have to copy paste. And then if I have to change it, I don't have to change it in 5 different places. It's the benefit of kind of doing this piecemeal and just including it. List people. And look, it lists. Now we didn't include the top nav, so we should do that first. Right, so we'll go over to list people. We'll grab all this. There's our list people. So if we want to do that first, right, probably don't even need that as a block here. We'll include and we'll echo. That's a little funny there. About 2 lines. Okay, now we get a nice little top nav here on our list people. And add, update, delete, they don't exist yet, but we'll get there. Okay? So what do you want to do next? Do we add people or update people? We can do either. You're that bored already, you don't even care. All right, that's fine. That's fair. How about add person? Or we said add people, right? Add person, add people? I think it was add person. All right. Now, you might be thinking, oh, hey, if I have to copy paste all this database stuff, that's kind of annoying. And yeah, it is, especially if anything has to change. Can we do it differently? Yeah, sure. So let's go add a source file here for our database page. Then the database page, where do we do that? And list people, right? It has all that. Can go and set up our object. Right, so we don't actually need to give it a try catch here. Let's see. Put that in here. Connect to a database. Right, so I have all my database connection stuff here, and then in my page, I can include it. So inside of the try block, because that's where the bad stuff could happen. I still need to do it inside of try on my page, but now I can include my database PHP. Okay. Now, what's not happening yet, though, is the variable hasn't come through. We need to go and grab that variable. Give me a second. Let me grab, let's see, that's our database. Oh, I'm sorry. So instead of include, we want to require. So so remember, include is just going to throw it all in. Require it will error out nicely if it can't. So require is a little bit cleaner here for that. And then, do we just get DB? I think we just get the DB. Let's try it. So we'll give that a run. Okay, if we list connected, great. So now we have another piece here we can just include in our projects or require to grab and pull it in. We got the top nav, we got our database, and again, if it's offline, if I stop it here real quick and refresh, because it's in a try block on my page and an exception happens on the code I've included, I'm still going to handle that and show the error. That part makes sense? We're okay? Okay. All right. So let's go and add person. So we need to do those two, sorry. Sugar's high. This thing is nice that it warns me. All right. So for add person, right, we're going to grab the top nav. We're going to grab the database connection. Right? Okay, cool. So we'll do the same two that we had in list. Get the top nav. We'll do our database. We don't even need this like connected database echo. That's just extra stuff now. Now, the add person could either handle a form or it could have the form on it itself. Maybe it makes more sense to just have a form send data to the add person. Right? Then we could put the form on our index page. Right? So maybe we don't actually need to like navigate directly to it. Maybe we just put a form in here. Right? We could do that. So let's grab a form. What did it even do? It's so weird. Great. So we got to grab a form, throw it in here. Right? And then maybe we get like touching the wrong buttons here. All right, so go to add person.php. And now, because we're going to be actually submitting data here, this should not be a get. Right? It's not a read-only operation. This is actually, we're going to go and interact with the database and add a row to it. So this should definitely be a post. Okay? So, all right, so name. We get a name. We had first name. I'm sorry. First name, last name. First name, last name. We have first name. We have last name. And then we had balance. That was it, right? First name, last name, and balance. Balance, first name, last name. The ID, again, we don't need to add a person. We'll get the ID back out when we find them, but for adding them, we don't need it. So just first name, last name, and then balance. We'll call this balance. Okay, and then we'll call this add person. We got a nice little form here for adding a person. Great. So maybe we actually take add person out of our top nav then, right? What do you think? Because we don't need to like list them directly. Right? We'll just be able to take them to the add person form. Sure. So then add person then should go and get a bunch of values out. Now we could go and check them first, I guess, before we even try and connect to the database, but we'll include the top nav. Right? Oh, let's do our PHP code first, right? So we'll do all of our validates. Let's go grab some validates here. We need to get name, first name, last name, and balance here. Sure. So looks like 3 of those ought to do it. So we had first name, we had last name, and we had balance. And again, float is probably fine for this, right? Because you might have 50 cents or something. We'll have first name, we'll have last name, and we'll have balance. And we're getting these off of the post, not the get. So this is our input post instead of input get. And input post. Okay, again, checking for special characters and any of the string inputs. Checking for numeric values. Great, we got those. We'll do our top nav. And then maybe we should sanity check real quick. Like, did you actually give me values? Right, we can check, hey, if first name does not equal nothing, right? If they actually gave me a first name, right, and last name does not equal nothing, and balance, I mean, technically a zero balance is fine. So we're probably fine if it's screwed up on the validate. Zero? I don't know. I'm not too concerned on one way or the other. So maybe zero balance is fine. So if the first name isn't nothing and the last name isn't nothing, we're good to go. Right? Or maybe we can say, hey, but how about if they are nothing, or this one is nothing, then we can just echo out an error. You must submit first and last name. Try again. Sure. Right? And then otherwise, we actually go do all of our stuff. That makes sense? Just do a quick little sanity check. Okay. All right, so we're requiring the database. We need the rest of our try block here. Where's our catch? Include the rest of our catch. So that's our try block. There's our catch. Then all of that belongs in the else. I'm sorry, I keep using the shortcut. If you go to source and format, it auto formats for you. That's Alt-Shift-F. It's like your best friend in NetBeans. So you don't have to worry about any of the tabbing stuff. It fixes it all for you. It aligns all your curly braces, does all that beautiful stuff for you. That's Alt-Shift-F. I just do it out of habit now to get all the alignment stuff happening. It's one of my favorite shortcuts. All right, so we'll get the database, and then we can go run a command. So we're going to create a query. Now this one's going to be a little bit different here. So when we're inserting data, it's not just a regular select here. So we're going to build our query. We're going to say, I want to insert into person. And insert into the table. And then in the set of parentheses, you give it all the fields. Right? So we saw it before when we added the new person, it gave us a little insert. We could copy it. So let's add a new person. Right? That way we can kind of copy off this format here. Oh, I forgot to turn it back on. Let's try that again. It'll help if it's online. There we go. All right, so we'll add Jeb. Jeb wants to buy stocks. He's all excited. Okay, sure. So we'll give him a balance, say, of 100. Why not? So we see it's insert into the name of the table, and then a set of parentheses. You list out the columns here. This one is technically optional, but again, it's always good to do because you're explicitly saying this column, this column, this column, this column. It works without it if you give it all the columns in the order it expects. Again, if the order changes though, and we gave it, here's the first thing, here's the second thing, here's the third thing, it could screw up. So by listing the columns, we're saying, okay, this is going to be the first thing. This is going to be the second thing. This is going to be the third thing, right? We're like kind of mapping them along. So we're always going to do that. Now, we can actually skip this ID and null. I don't know why it includes that here. It's just extra, but sure. So we're not going to include the ID. We're going to insert first, last, and balance. Now, the funny thing here is that these, I believe, do need to be in quotes. I think it's going to fail on us if we don't. So I'm going to do the double quote string here so I can have apostrophe quotes around our column names. Balance here. So insert into person. Here's all my attributes. And then we say values and another set of parentheses. Right, the values, we're saying, okay, here's the fields. Here's the ones you map into it. We'll do first, The first thing, the second thing, the third thing. And now these are, the bad thing to do is to say, okay, here's first name. Right? And just let that substitute into the string. This is not good. Do we look at the little XKCD comic, the little Johnny Drop tables? So we need to also not only sanitize for special characters, but we need to sanitize our database input. So to do that, we say colon, and we'll say this is first name. We'll say colon, last name, comma, colon, balance. That's our query. Okay? So then we're going to go prepare the query. We'll say our statement is the $db prepare given the query. Okay? Now, to get these substituted in with the correct values and sanitized. Turns out the PDO class in PHP knows how to do this. The fine folks at PHP already did the work for us. We don't have to do any extra work to sanitize. We just need to use their code. So we say statement, and we say bind value. And what do we want to bind? So we're going to say, hey, connect these two, right? Attach this value to this one here. So we're going to replace first name, comma, with the first name code value. So it's the database string here, the one with the colon here, and then our value for it. And we're just going to bind all of these. So that does all the work and the sanitizing for us. Last name, and then we had balance, right? Balance and balance. Okay? So we've gone and connected the dots now and gotten the sanitization. Words are hard, friends. Words are hard. Yeah, definitely. So doing this will avoid any sort of SQL injection error. And this is why it boggles my mind that it's still such a common vulnerability. Like, it's not even hard to do it this way. But people still say, oh, sure, let me just concatenate in here. First name. Right? And then, oh, let me concatenate in here another quote. Don't be stupid. Right? Just use the tool. The tool knows how to do all this stuff for you. Just give it colon, what we want to call it. Right? And then the bind value takes care of the work for us. Then we have to run it. So statement, execute. Now, there's nothing for us to read. Technically, you could like read, hey, there was a row updated. We could care less. So then we're going to go and close that cursor. Close cursor. Why is it so upset with me? Like, it's not giving me any of the type of heads. Cool, so we inserted. Now, there's nothing really for us to show here. So maybe we just echo out successful. Okay. Successfully added. And I don't know, then maybe we put in the first name. First name. Last name. Sure, why not? We could then like go just redirect them back to the index page if we wanted, or maybe send them to the list page, or anything we want to do, right? They're all options for us. But for now, let's just say, okay, we've added somebody. Let's give it a try. All right, I'm an index page, yay. So who do we want to add? Let's add someone else. Should my other daughter? We can add Vivi. We'll add her. I'll give her $100. We'll add, access denied for user stock program to database stock program. Well, that's a different error. Let's take a look. It's access denied. It's online, right? I wonder if we didn't do our permissions right. Let's take a look at the users. They should have insert permissions. Stock program. Oh, something got funky. That's super weird. Let me just refresh. Oh. Errors. I'm going to stop it again here. Do a stop. I'm going to stop Apache too. Start them back up. Just for fun. Because that was working before. I don't know what we did. Let's go back home. Okay, let's try checking out users again. The stock program user. Ooh. All right, this isn't normal. This worked last time. That's unfortunate. Wrong checksums. Huh. Tempted to reboot to fix it. I think a reboot would fix it. I can't get around that, can I? That's no good. Wait, edit privileges? Will that one load? Nope. That doesn't load either. Huh. Yeah, that's unfortunate. See, can I... Oh yeah, I can't even get to my database here. Let me log out. Log out and back in again. We'll try that. Maybe it's time for another break. Let's see. Empty session data. All right, I get now. I'm logged in as root. That's good. No. All right, something bad happened. That's super weird. Can I add a new user? Nope. All right. Yeah, something is bad. That's no good. I don't know what I did. It was working before. That's really unfortunate. Yeah, so something got screwed up. So definitely that is not working. Access denied. Can we go back and even list? Yeah, list doesn't even work either. So we didn't even do anything between the two, right? That's really screwy. Yeah, I got in a bad state. I'm going to try rebooting. So why don't we take another 10-minute break? I got to reboot, so it'll kill the stream for a second. I'll come back afterwards, and then we'll pick it back up. So that's insert. We'll do updates, and we'll do deletes, and then we'll talk about the next project. That's what we got on tap, okay? All right. So folks online, we'll be back in a little bit.